Talk? Oh, I see. Is that good? Very good. Are you? I have the hardest job of the evening. My job is to welcome everybody to Elaine's Toasty and Roasty. Here it is. Now, you know Elaine has done a lot of stuff for the union. She's done a lot of stuff for the college, but her most notable accomplishment at the SFT has been our master negotiator. And I've captured on slides a couple of things that events that happened.
You're gonna have to read it like
Yeah, he says, I will not negotiate with you. And the dog says, no, I'm going to pee on the carpet. And that's,
Is that what Elaine does?
no, that's not what Elaine does. But negotiations are complex. You often have to worry about dog pee. Sometimes things just don't work out. And Bob said, let's negotiate. And I said, over my dead body. And you can see where they wound up. That's a scene of Hades someplace. I wish these were a little larger. Occasionally, threats don't work. And the guy's hanging off a cliff, and he says, I think you misinterpreted my offer to settle out of court. More than occasionally, actually. Your money or your life? And Elaine says, I never accept the first offer. Sometimes, though, you really need to bring in Mike McGarvey. No, Mr. Wolf, my client would not care to take this outside. And sometimes you have to wing it. Children, please, let's settle this like adults. I've seen that more than once. And of course, there's the governor. Steady, don't flinch, he's only bluffing. I have had the privilege of working with Elaine for many, many years. She has been a bulldog. She grabs at stuff and shakes her head and won't let it go. She tracks down pieces of information. She has done a really great job for all of us at this local. We have tonight a bunch of speakers, and the first who's offered to make some comments is a person who has managed the finances for the local for many years. That's why we're in the shape we're in. And Joanne McInerney wants to say a few words. And yep.
Yeah, you can just take it out. Perfect.
And as I told Mike, I never spent a dime before I had to. You used to always have to donate to pay the bills, right, Mike?
Right.
Joanne?
Yes.
Trouble hearing you.
You have to talk very close.
You have to talk into the mic.
How's this?
Technology. Don't you love it? We can get it bigger. Just to really embarrass you.
Well, I get to talk about Elaine in terms of all the photos that I had. It made me realize that I didn't take near enough photos. You know what, Ann? You forgot to show me how to make it go forward. Thank you. But this is a very young Elaine in her early days. And how old were you at this time, Elaine? You know, this is the lawyer talking. Take that with a grain of salt. And this is one of her family's trips down to D.C. And you can see she had great thoughts of going to Senate. Maybe one of these days. Can you pick out which one's Elaine? She was the older sister, and that's with her younger sister and brother. This is worth a lot of blackmail. Do you recognize what they're all holding?
The batons. Everybody knows batons.
They're twirlers. Elaine swears she can twirl one of these things. Did you bring it along? Have you tried it lately?
She can do anything.
And again, can you find Elaine in the picture? This is our fine Waldorf.
Lower
All
right.
right, got it?
The one with the C on it.
And here she is again. Living in Staten Island at the time, right? I bet you never knew she rollerblades. Graduation day, high school, right?
Junior high school. Junior high.
Junior high?
Yeah, junior high.
Little outfits in junior high? Okay. Heels, nylons, I bet. Is this junior or senior prom? Senior prom. And you know who that handsome guy is next to her, right? You know, she's been with Brian since high school. I've always thought maybe, she should have tried a few more, but, she seems to be pretty satisfied with what she got, which is a good sign, right, Brian?
Yeah.
This looks a little more like wedding days. And there she is. Next to, again, that handsome guy, Brian.
Hair.
With hair. With hair. Not so bad yet, Brian. At least you have some, right? And now we're segueing into the love of Elaine's life. This is why she works, in order to travel a little bit around. We have some of her pictures of traveling, give you an idea of what she does in her free time. Here she was hiking, doing a bicycle mountain trip in Ecuador. And as Brian said, she spent most of her bicycling time in the truck as Brian was going up the hill. But this was in Ecuador. We think this was Italy. Is that right? France. France. Yeah. Not, okay. Are you modeling yourself after the statue here? And I bet you can guess where she is here, right? Oh, yeah, France, right. Okay. With her little buddy. Did you bring him home? No. She has a love of flowers, takes pictures, enjoys them. We're throwing some of her loves in. Now, this was recent. Pam, do you know where this is? Where's Pam? Minneapolis. This is outside the art museum in Minneapolis when she was up there last year. I see the cherry, but is that a spoon? What's it supposed to mean? Spoonful of cherries? Okay. And here we are in the Southwest in the earlier days, traveling around, I think. Now, this picture is really important. You actually saw this fellow a few pictures back. This is her brother, who is the sheriff of the city of Florence in Arizona. even looks like a sheriff, doesn't he? I don't quite see his gun. But out in Florence, where she goes most Christmases to travel around. Again, we're changing countries. We're heading over to Peru. This trip, I actually went with her. My son and I went with Brian and Elaine. It was one of the overseas adventure travel tours. Here she is feeding the alpaca. We went to a alpaca farm there. We're up on top of Machu Picchu. This is one of the members along the trip. And of course, on the road to the sun, you know, can you tell which one's Elaine? We got a picture there with her buddy standing guard. And here we were at the end of the trail on the road to the sun. Brian's not in the picture because he was the cameraman for this one. But we had a really nice group of people, had a really good time. And, you know, chance to show off my handsome son. We're looking for eligible girlfriends for him. He'd broken his... Okay. He'd broken his leg and was on crutches most of the trip. Now we're moving on to India. A couple years ago, she went to India and Bhutan. Here we go. Here we go. You know, it looks to me like she's a little bit worried. Were you worried in this picture? Okay. And now we're over into Bhutan. This is a little village called Tiger's Nest up on the mountains. Brian went up to the village, right?
Monastery.
Monastery? This is what Elaine did. Now, see if you recognize it. Elaine stayed and drew pictures. I don't know if you're aware of this, but every trip Elaine goes on, she takes a little book and she writes notes, she draws little pictures as she's going along the way. Actually, my son picked up the habit from you, and he does the same now when he travels. But you bring back more memories than just pictures. You oftentimes have details, comments that you want to look at. So Elaine's quite the artist. Trekking in Tibet. And here we are, the final picture in Tibet. And if you look up at the upper right, you see the Himalayas. One of these mountains is probably K2, but it's obviously a gorgeous place to go. And then, going back a few years earlier, Elaine's on safari in Botswana. And here she managed to find another form of transportation on a little elephant. I felt kind of sorry for the elephant, right? Yeah. Egypt with Frank and Pat Thomas. And you can see the pyramids in the background. Here she's in study with some statues here. Is this in front of the pyramid or this building? But she's conversing. And this is the Dead Sea. They have a lot of mud at the Dead Sea. And she's looking, that's a mirror, right, Elaine? She's black-faced. She has mud all over. Now Pat thought about giving me some pictures for this, Frank's wife, but she said, whoa. Elaine might never talk to them again if they did that. So I understand the pictures got worse and the bathing suits had to be thrown out. That's what happened. And then the love of Elaine and Brian's life is every summer they go diving for about the last 30 years. These are a few pictures from the Galapagos. And there's a little reef shark that Elaine and Brian are watching. Mouth looks a little bit small, so maybe they're okay. But Elaine really does enjoy the turtles and she's trying to shake hands with this guy, and he's not having much to do with it. And there's another guy saying, "Get away from me, lady," heading out again, but you can definitely see that's Elaine back there with that big turtle chasing it around. Now we're going a little bit into some of Elaine's activities. As you know, she does pottery, and she often goes up to Haystack for summer meetings, and she spends a lot of time at the Clay Studio in Philadelphia, but this was one of the groups she was with, and you can see the right, some of their products. And here's some products that Elaine did. Now, I was looking at this and talking with Marianne, and this almost looked like the tiger's nest up there, right?
It is.
Yeah, this is the tiger's nest. So this is obviously after you went to Bhutan, and it symbolizes her trip from the previous summer. And just a couple more pieces of her artwork, which, you know, you find pieces left all over campus if you look carefully. Actually, if you go to Elaine's house, her yard is scattered with pottery. And what do the neighborhood kids call you? The pot lady? You know, that can be taken a couple ways. Okay. One of our other loves is birding, and we've gone on a couple, we walk and bird, but this is a trip on the, what is it, Mekor? What ship, sailing ship? This was on the Morris River where we went with Pam and John. We've done the Cohency with Frank and Pat, but these just happen to be on the Morris. And you get nice close-ups like this osprey was right by the riverside. And just a few pictures of Elaine, obviously having a good time. Another place we walk is Forsyth, and we oftentimes walk either before or after breakfast, depending on what's going on, but it's a beautiful place to go walking. This is Lily Pond, where we always walk by, and this is a different view of Lily Pond, and we usually find a lot of nice birds when we're out there walking. But it's a nice way to start the day. And we're going into another area here. We party a lot. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. Well, breakfast a couple times a week. We go out and party and people join us. This happens to be at Selena's, and there's one of our guilty people. You can see half a face. But we usually have 4 or 5 of us a couple days a week. And we go to different places. They like us. We support them with our tips and things. We also have parties. And we usually try to make them events. This happened to be Marianne's 60th birthday party. And so we did the 60s. Elaine and I got a tie-dye kit, and we actually tie-dyed our own t-shirts for this. And as you can see, Elaine's talking. You know, this doesn't ever stop. And here's Elaine calling out the cards for Trivia Pursuit. You know, we have a game night about once a month, and I'll have to admit, I don't think I've ever seen her lose. You know, and someone else has more comments to make on that, but she's pretty good at games. This is the view from my house in the morning where Elaine wakes up. She has the best view in the house, looking out over the marshlands. Plus, she's on the riverside, so she sees the river. This is the morning. You know, I had to ask Elaine this evening, I said, how in the world did you ever end up staying at my house? I could not remember. You know, it's been a long time. She usually stays a couple days a week at my house, which she had an office across from me before she moved to that fancy digs on F-Wing. And she said one day, she just asked me if I ever rented a house. I said, you know, a room in the house. I said, no. At the time, I was living in Philadelphia, and I didn't have anybody living at my house down at the shore, so it was empty. And And I said, well, why'd you ask? She says, well, I'm looking for a place to stay a little bit down here. I said, oh, sure. And you know, it really was to my advantage, because one night when she was staying there, the furnace went out in the middle of winter, and she took care of it. Can you imagine what it'd be like to have bursted pipes and like? But it's been wonderful. So the years I was in Philadelphia, she stayed at the house a couple nights a week. And then after, when I moved back down about 7 years ago, I've had a roommate for 2 nights. And it was a nice transition for me, going from an active life in Philadelphia to having a roommate twice a week down here. So it's been the best of both worlds. But it's a nice place to live, a nice place to wake up in the morning. We do have a few family members here. We have a few ducks, little Muscovy ducks, and in the springtime some babies. And when we don't get up early enough to come down and feed them, they come up on the porch and expect to be fed. Real nice little guys. And then, you know, we're nearing towards the end, but this is a little bit of Elaine's activity. This is a union rally down in Trenton. Pictures. Just so I did a couple of these so you can see some of your own faces in some of these pictures. There's Doug and Mike and a few more in the background. I love the pig. I love the rat. Had to take some pictures of them. But needless to say, we lost the issue, got passed, but we did have a lot of fun during the rallies. You know, I'd never done a rally before in my life. Elaine, of course, got arrested when she was in college, so she was way ahead of me. Found out she also went to Woodstock. I never knew anybody that had gone to Woodstock. I now do. Two people here.
Pots there?
Maybe that's where she learned to throw pots. These are two of the family members, newer members in Elaine and Brian's family. They were named after the guides in Bhutan in India. So I'm not even going to try to pronounce their names. This one's nickname is Annie. She's the little shy one. And we're coming to the last picture, and I'll have to say this is my favorite picture. And I have a little gift here for Elaine for her bird watching day.
Go ahead. I'm just setting something up, so if you want to say something.
You know, actually, Joanne over dinner told me that she actually didn't ever remember Elaine moving into her house. She just showed up, and just extraordinary. Our next speaker is rather shy and retiring, and be gentle with her. It's Ann Pomeroy.
I think I'm okay.
Technology. I'll be shy and retiring. Should be on. Oh, good. That's on.
That's nice.
I have to read this. As Mike pointed out, and as you all probably know, Elaine Ingulli is the chief negotiator for the union, and you know, she's incredibly competent. It borders on disgusting. In fact, I have a really difficult time trying to roast her because of her remarkable talents, and I really wish that all of you could see her in action in the room when she's negotiating. But of course, the problem is that these negotiations are confidential, and so I can't tell you what goes on there. But I thought what I might be able to do instead is to kind of take you inside Elaine's mind while she is negotiating. And to this end, I put together a small visual aid here. First off, it's really important to understand that we're very lucky at Stockton. We have very friendly relations with the members of the administration, with whom we end up negotiating our local agreements. They're all very reasonable people, for the most part. And things usually go very smoothly. You know, from time to time, of course, things can get a little bit tense, and we don't always see exactly eye to eye on the issues. And, you know, sometimes we actually begin very, very far apart. Oddly enough, though, and this is what is always amazing to me, Elaine is just as cool as a cucumber through these things. She's calm, she's collected, she remains above the fray. You'd almost think her mind was elsewhere. She has this zen-like quality that really seems to keep her completely composed. Well, as I said, we're often very apart on the issues to begin with. And sometimes we just can't seem to understand how it is that the other side is so completely unreasonable. And, you know, tempers can get frayed, and sometimes we get threatened, of course, and frustration can be quite evident. But, you know, not for Elaine. She just pauses, and she thinks for a moment, and then she gets us right back on track. You know, and what is incredible, she's got this mental toughness, and I have no idea where that comes from. Inside joke. Sometimes negotiations can become downright boring. I mean boring. Slogging through page 573 of the policies and procedures for the 46th time was enough to give some of us apoplexy. We get distracted. We sometimes think about other things, but not Elaine. She's always right on top of things. You know, she has some highly innovative and creative ideas about what kind of benefits we might be able to get, which is always a bit amusing to the administration. Sometimes they are downright baffled. But you know, Elaine will come up with like 87 reasons from Sunday why it is that the faculty are the hardest working bunch of people on the whole planet, and why administration should really give us the moon and the stars. Did I mention that all the while she is furiously taking notes? Ultimately, though, she draws better than I do. Ultimately, though, because Elaine never gives up. Because she keeps at it, and she keeps on them, and certain issues, and she just goes at it again and again and again. And she calmly says, well, let's go back over this one more time. Finally, by sheer force of will, we have come time and again to some pretty remarkable agreements. Like I said, it's awfully hard to roast Elaine because she's got the heart and the soul. of a champion. She is truly amazing.
Give it up.
Our next speaker is one of the breakfast brunch, Marianne.
I have to stand up here and look at this picture of, what's his name? It's on the computer.
Well, then that one you have to look at. She's complaining about Alan. Do you want to write that down? My friend complaining about Alan.
Alan who? I even have a title for my speech. It's called The Essence of Elaine. I've known Elaine a long time. As long, I think, as I've been at Stockton, but really neither of us can actually remember meeting any other. But the following story is my first clear remembrance of her. And the best I can date it is somewhere between 89 and 91. I know it was before I was president of the SFT. I had been hired to teach bibliographic instruction, and I wanted to be good at it. I'd never been in the classroom before. So I decided that I should shadow someone. I settled on either GT or Elaine, and I saw Elaine first. It's funny how some random acts really change your life. Elaine was enthusiastic. She enthusiastically welcomed the idea that I sit in on her class. The class turned out to be Perspectives on Women, and it was a freshman seminar. And at that time, I knew very little about women's studies. But I shouldn't have worried. Elaine had already decided how it would work out. And the next thing I know, we were co-teaching the class. First day of class, Elaine arranges the chairs in a circle, makes everyone name tags, and starts talking about how the class will be structured. Then I noticed this business with her hair. She kept tugging at it. And at one point, I thought she might pull some out. Turns out that at that point in her life, and I suspect still, she gets stage fright at the beginning of each semester. And the hair pulling is a nervous habit. It actually made me feel a whole lot better about my own nerves, but it's a good thing she got it under control before she made herself bald. I learned a lot from that class. First and foremost, getting freshmen to discuss a reading requires that they read it first. Something these kids did. That's something that was reinforced last week when I did an observation in another freshman seminar. It could have been the same group. But in this class, I first read about Maud Malone. That's the suffragette librarian who led the first parade down Broadway for women's rights in 1908. And I learned some new words, well, one in particular. First day, she's talking about knowledge and how you get knowledge and so forth, and she starts writing on the board. And she starts EPIS, and I'm looking, now I just had 4 kids. And I think, why is she writing episiotomy up there? And she was really writing epistemology. It's taken a long time for me to get those words straightened out. Then Elaine became president of the faculty assembly. And again, it's funny how some random events change your life. Elaine's all about transparency. And as president, she wanted a digital archive of assembly materials. She coerced, I guess you got, somehow bribed Wendell White to come up with a program, which he compiled, and then she got me to spend the summer scanning and loading 10 years worth of minutes and reports. Actually, it was about 10 years later, that archive unfortunately got eaten by a worm. But being the librarian that I am, I had the originals. And this month, the library actually will be rolling out a digital archive with the Assembly and Senate minutes already uploaded. Yeah. It's hard to believe that it's at least 12 years ago that you came up with that idea. When I first became president of the Faculty Assembly, I was fully aware that I needed advice. So I formed a kitchen cabinet. Now, I want you to know it's not modeled on Satcamp's cabinet. I came up with the idea first. Elaine was the first person I asked. Joanne was the second. There were others, no doubt about that. But the three of us met religiously for breakfast every week. Seriously, we spent as much time discussing our personal lives as issues at Stockton. But I don't think I could have asked for better people to bounce ideas off of. Joanne always took the side of the student. It didn't make any difference if they were right or not. Elaine, a lifelong member of the ACLU, brought a different perspective. I usually got the worst of any of these discussions, but it gave me a different perspective. So sometime around 2004, Elaine became the SFT negotiator. She doesn't actually remember what year it was. When I was president of the union, this was something I had to do. And I remember telling my husband at the time, no, I still have the same husband. I remember telling him at the time that, how much trouble I was having. And he said, you really need a lawyer on that team. I always thought it was a good idea, so it's worked out extremely well. But a lot of you don't know Elaine in that mode. Most of you know her from her emails. Lost keys, lost flash drive, lost keys, lost earring, lost keys, lost date book. In fact, she loses so many things that when she told me the other day that someone had swiped her car, I totally believed she'd misplaced it. Actually, someone had scratched it in the parking lot. The professional Elaine is a different matter. Watch her take notes in a meeting. Her fingers will be covered in black magic marker, but the notes are extremely detailed. Don't say anything in front of her you don't want her to write down. She's been teaching the same classes for years, but she prepares for each class like it was the first time. Her explanation, I have to do work on Sunday. I can't go with you to do blah, blah, blahs because law changes so often. I need to keep up. Her negotiating notebooks are bulging with notes, copies, and correspondence. And because of my years as her friend, I think I can explain how Elaine negotiates. Now, mind you, I have not sat in the room with them, so I come from it from a little different perspective. Elaine joined our investment club a couple years after we'd actually started it. The club had been in existence for a while. At every meeting, she would complain that her rate of return was less than the members of longer standing. Joanne, being the very patient person that she is, would patiently explain that it had to do with when she joined the club, how the market was performing, and so on, every month. By the time the club ended, we could all quote Joanne on that topic. Now, it's merged. We meet with some friends and we play games. You guys will remember this one. Help me understand. Elaine whines pathetically. And someone, often Joanne, but not always, patiently explains the rules. Play goes on. Help me understand. She whines again. And usually Joanne explains it again. And then she beats the shit out of it. Yeah, annoying. So this is how I think negotiations must go. She gets the administration to explain over and over again, and she sits there whining, I don't understand. She actually is looking for an opening, and when she gets it, she strikes, and generally wins. So now I'm going to read you a list of the agreements that Elaine has negotiated or been part of the negotiations. I know that's not a complete list because I took out personally the personal negotiations where they apply to individuals. And also I took out I think there's some that are missing from current. But I wanted to see how many of these actually affect your life. I was going to ask people to stand at that point, and then I realized there'd be a lot of colleagues, non-faculty here, but you'll get the idea. All right, and this is no particular order. CPC and union observer status, CPC election agreement, CPC vacancy, evaluation of preceptorial advising, evaluation of precepting by online students, evaluation of professional staff, evaluation of faculty hired mid-year, evaluation of faculty and library faculty, and we thank you very much for that one. Evaluation of faculty and library faculty, minor language change, evaluation of teaching regarding use of IDEA, evaluation of teaching change, EDOC evaluation agreement, coordinator agreement, program coordinators, directors, and other designated faculty, program coordinators, directors, and other different years, revisions to the program coordinators, directors, and other designated faculty, freshman seminar coordinator, summer intensive research experience, summer special projects, summer intensive research experience, summer research support, and there's another page. We owe you a lot.
I served as union president for 4 of these years that Elaine did this, and Mary Ann is not exaggerating. This is just extraordinary work for the local. But there's more. Nora Poligard, one of her colleagues.
Well, I have a short list of Elaine. I got probably the shortest list. I met Elaine in 1990, and she was the first friend that I have since 1990. She said, "How are you, Nora? Are you doing all right?" I said, "Yeah, a little bit." And she said, "Oh, if you ever need anything, I'm always here." That's what she said. So every time I have a problem, I come to Elaine. She was the first one who offered me anything. And I said, "Oh, that's great." So I talked to Paul and said, "I have a problem. Should I go to Elaine?" "Yeah, Elaine." So Elaine has been my mentor since 1990. Till today, I still come to see her for all the problems that we have in the School of Business. So she is the best mentor. And I asked every other person who has a problem to go see Elaine. Sorry, Elaine. And when I wrote my self-assessment for my tenure, I said, "Elaine, oh, here's how you're going to do it, Nora." She bled my self-assessment, but I was happy with it. But she said, "Nora, I'm really sorry I bled your self-assessment, but it's really good for you." And I said, "Okay." The good thing about her is she scratched everything and she says, "I'm sorry, Nora. I apologize for all the comments." So she is a really good editor, but she does all of those apologies every time she edits my paper. Elaine is a good friend. She's the best friend I ever had in Stockton. So, again, I always tell people, if you need a friend, go to Elaine. Sorry, Elaine. And if there's somebody who's having a problem, I said, "See Elaine." And who is Elaine? One day, Elaine was walking on the corridor in the hallway, and I said, "Who is Elaine?" for a new faculty. He said, "See that lady walking with a long, long skirt?" And she said, "Who? They're all wearing long skirts." The longest skirt. and actually, the new faculty got to see Elaine because I have a good description of her. And of course, Elaine is a great negotiator. Since 1993, we have been requesting for a sub-track coordinator allowance or stipend or whatever you call it. She was the only one who did it for us. And because she threatened the other side. "Do you really want an international track without a sub-track coordinator?" And poor so-and-so's thing. He gave it to her. And of course, the best memories that I would have of Elaine all the time is she set the fashion trend for me. And I call her all the time, oh, my fashion trendsetter is Elaine. I said, why? Well, before I came to Stockton, I was wearing short skirts. I said, because she's my mentor, I always see her wearing long skirts. And I said, maybe I should wear long skirts. And so I did. And my husband said, Paul said, oh, your skirts are getting longer and longer. And I said, blame it on Elaine. But of course, she saved me a lot of dollars for going to the seamstress. And of course, one day I was invited by Elaine to come to their house for New Year's Day. It was my first time. And I said, oh, Elaine, so Brian Ingulli, I said, because I was trying to address the Christmas card. Mr. and Mrs. Brian Ingulli. I said, Nora, it is not Ingulli. I said, what's Brian's last name? Ackerman. And I said, well, that's a nice name. Why did you have the Ackerman instead of the Ingulli? Oh, I told Brian, if it's going to be an Acker woman, I will take it. And I told that story to a new faculty. She said, Elaine is something. But of course, Elaine is the best friend that we always have. And I recommended her to all the new faculty members. And those faculty members really love her. And she is also my best friend, our best mentor. And she's still my mentor.
Nora, where's your skirt tonight?
Today I was cold.
Next speaker, one of my colleagues in Psych, Nancy Ashton.
I have prize. I just have to figure out how to do it. But you know, it's really funny. I can picture you doing this, Elaine. Any self-respecting feminist, which Elaine is, knows about witches, especially the good ones. And in fact, I think we once had an episode where we were both witches. This is a stroll, since we used to regularly walk together down memory lane. But not to worry, folks, it won't be too long, because although I've known her a quarter of a century, do you realize that? It was 25 years ago. My memory is for shit, so I can't remember. And I have to be honest, some of the things that I remember could really be roasty, but I can't. For me, our treasured friendship began in the halls of H-Wing when Elaine came out of her office one evening early in her first semester, and my 3-year-old and I were playing. And immediately, there was like an instantaneous affinity, professional and personal. A lot used to go on in H-Wing. It doesn't so much anymore, because people aren't there as often. Like the time when we were there when the murder happened. Which isn't funny, but people don't know about that. Do you remember we were together that Friday afternoon, sitting in the office when we heard the shot? We've had some other exciting times, like when we team taught a course. I wish we could do it again before we retire. It was one of my highlights of being an educator who was educated, and it was possibly the best 4 credits that those students had ever had. Brian, I have have to bring Brian in there because my family and I, first my family with that 3-year-old who grew up and is now in her late 20s, and then the other daughter. The two of them were so great. For Dinks, they had a real appreciation of single moms and how they needed help with kids. I don't know, Brian, did you actually help cut the Christmas cookies when Elaine used to have Hillary over? Or did you get out of that one? I do have to say, and my apologies to both of you for bringing up this incident. Now, it wasn't the time when you were coming over for dinner and you showed up 90 minutes early and I was in my curlers doing the vacuum cleaning. No, this one was in your yard. And I think it was before all those great little pieces of pottery were there, Elaine. Can I tell him that Brian has a temper? If you didn't know it, Brian has a temper. And Elaine is the one that spends the most time with him, so sometimes she's the recipient. Of course, sometimes she does things that make people yell at her. And one day we were walking around the yard, and Brian's the gardener. He was back then, I guess he still is. And Elaine just did a real no-no. And she stepped in the wrong place. Okay? And we're there with my cute little 6-year-old. Some of you remember her. The rest of you, use your imagination if you can. And Brian just went apeshit. I mean, he lost it. And Brian, it's taken a little less than 20 years, but I think Hillary's over it. I did pay them back for coming to my house 90 minutes early that one time, because I went to their New Year's party bringing some of my family that were uninvited. But gifts. Elaine is a real gift herself. But she's also been the giver of countless ones to me, tangible and not. It was wonderful that we saw the slides of your creations in clay. I have many treasured vases and other objects of beauty that are useful too. But mostly, you being you is the real gift. She's got generosity of mind, spirit, heart. She's been an inspiration and a role model to many. Elaine, you don't need to answer what it is that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life, because you live it every week. Lao Tzu supposedly said, nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. And that's you to a T. We marvel at how you manage to do everything that you do. Not only is another world possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing, wrote Arundhati Roy. And you, dear friend, are not only witness to that world, you are on the midwife team. Thank you for all you do, for all you give, for all you are, and for being you.
Well, if I've ever seen a good witch, that's a good witch. Our next speakers are a team, Deb Feiger and Ellen Matari.
I'll try to share the mic. I think it has to be shorter for me than Nori.
As we all know, I'm Deb, that's Ellen. Two of the Three Stooges. As we all know, in recent years, Stockton College and the state of New Jersey have instituted some, shall we say, firm policies in order to ensure that state employees, meaning us, abide by ethical standards. Some of these policies are reasonable efforts to ensure fairness. But, as we know, other policies seem unreasonably strict. Rules that ask us to return boxes of holiday candy so our objectivity isn't compromised seem a bit far-fetched.
Well, but it turned, I'll try it without the mics. No. All right, in high school they used to tell me to talk quieter in plays. turns out that the policies we're familiar with are just the tip of the iceberg. Stockton's administration has been experimenting with expanding and reinterpreting the ethics policies. The administration has been instituting some other new policies as well. So in order to learn more about Elaine for this Toast and Roust, we hacked into her email with the help of Lisbeth Salander and found some startling emails that they got from the college administration. Since we have so many union members here, we thought it was our duty to share them with you this evening. And please let us know if you've received some similar emails. So we're going to read them to you now.
So we're reading these emails in the order, chronological order, in the order that we found them, and they also chronological order by date. Here's the first email we found when we hacked into Elaine's email. Dear Professor Ingulli, as you are aware, the state of New Jersey has a policy restricting textbook authors from keeping the royalties from sales to students in their own courses. We appreciate your remarkable efforts to abide by this policy for your book co-authored with Terry Halbert, Law and Ethics in the Business Environment. When you have used it in your classes, you have been making the proper donations to offset the royalty gains. However, we have instituted some further restrictions to ensure that you do not benefit in intangible as well as tangible ways. For example, if students see that their professor is the textbook author, they may treat you with more respect. That would not be appropriate. You might be swayed to assign your own text for this non-monetary gain. Therefore, for all the copies sold to your students, we expect you to block out your name as co-author. This redaction should involve blacking out your name on the front and back book cover, as well as the title page and everywhere it appears as the header on the top of the page. If the author's biographies are included, yours will need to be covered. The graphics department will work with the bookstore to make alterations to the copies for sale here on our campus. Please be sure you follow these guidelines. Otherwise, you will be in violation of college policy. Sincerely, the Stockton administration.
Well, it continues. So here's the next one. Dear Professor Ingulli, as you're aware, the state of New Jersey has a policy restricting employees from taking gifts from interested parties. You have violated this policy in the past, accepting an illicit Phillies t-shirt as a gift. We had hoped that you would learn from this experience, but apparently you have not. We recently learned that one of your remarkable students gave you a clipping from the New York Times to add to the remarkable collection of articles posted to your office door. We have calculated the fair market value of this remarkable newspaper. Yet we have been told that quantitative reasoning is not your strong point. So let us walk you through these calculations. A copy of the daily paper has a retail price of $2. Frank, will you help me with this? We have estimated that each newspaper publishes conservatively 200 articles per day. By these calculations, each article clipped from the daily paper would have a retail value of 1 cent. In order to rectify this situation, you must immediately rid yourself of this monetary gain this gift represents. We are awaiting a check to the College Foundation for $0.01, equal to the value of the newspaper clipping. This will ensure that your integrity as a remarkable professor, especially a professor focusing on legal ethics, is not compromised. Please make sure you follow these guidelines, otherwise you will be in violation of college policy. Sincerely, the Stockton administration.
Here's the third email we found in Elaine's inbox. Dear Professor Ingulli, as you are aware, the college recently changed the trim color of our team uniforms to Columbia blue, replacing the red that used to trim our black and white uniforms. Consequently, the clothes and other paraphernalia for sale in the college bookstore have incorporated the Columbia blue color. The color is in the remarkable college seal, too. We are working to ensure uniform usage of this color across campus. Color uniformity is important to branding our new identity as New Jersey's distinctive public color. It has come to our attention that you have been known to display photos of your favorite basketball player, Allen Iverson, wearing the uniforms of the Philadelphia 76ers, the Denver Nuggets, and other teams. Now, we recognize that Iverson is a remarkable player. Unfortunately, these uniforms in these photos are not Columbia blue. In order to be consistent with college policy, you need to work with the graphics department. You need to Photoshop the colors of Iverson's uniforms so that they are in Columbia blue. Doing this will enable you to support your favorite player while adhering to college standards. Please make sure that you follow these guidelines. Otherwise, you will be in violation of college policy. Sincerely, the Stockton administration.
Oh no, it gets worse. The email number 4. Dear Professor Ingulli, as you're aware, and all of you are, college faculty and staff are currently working without a contract, and the provisions of previous agreements have been suspended. Booing would be fine. If the agenda of Governor Christie and the college presidents is successful, there will no longer be union representation for our employees. It has come to our attention you've been presenting a so-called labor film festival this semester. We are concerned that this film festival violates the rebranding of Stockton College as a non-union workplace. Therefore, in the interests of fairness, balance, and the new order, we're requiring you to organize a second film festival next semester that presents a more management-friendly perspective. This festival should focus on presenting positive stories of entrepreneurs, business leaders, and people's climbing the corporate ladder. In case you would like a few suggestions, the following films are remarkable depictions of the business world. First, Wall Street. The 1987 film that Oliver Stone directed to depict the heroic contributions to economic theorizing of Gordon Gekko, who brilliantly coins the phrase, greed is good. The Social Network. The 2010 film about Facebook that demonstrates the power of entrepreneurs to triumph over lawyers and throw really great parties. Working Girl, and the 1988 Melanie Griffith film that tells the happy story of a corporate merger led by a spunky heroine, proving that feminism does not have to threaten the status quo. Risky Business, the 1983 Tom Cruise film that provides a role model for students everywhere that the best way to get into a good college is to run a prostitution ring. And finally, of course, Up in the Air, the 2009 George Clooney film that can teach our students the most efficient ways to fire people, a very marketable skill in today's economy. Please be sure you follow these guidelines. Otherwise, you will be in violation of college policy. Sincerely, the Stockton administration.
And this is the last email we found chronologically in Elaine's inbox. It's just from a couple of days ago. Dear Professor Ingulli, as you are aware, faculty and staff who are traveling to conferences or on college business must fill out an authorization request for reception and travel, ART form, and approval of attendance form for permission to travel. This is to ensure that your travel does not involve ethical violations. It is critical that we know if you will come into any contact with interested parties with which the state and the college will be doing business. We are looking for new ways to support our academic programs and our Stockton 2020 theme of global perspectives. For example, you may be aware of our recent agreement with a national university in South Korea. There are some other ventures, though, that have not been yet released to the public. It has come to our attention that you recently traveled to North Sulawesi, Indonesia, on a vacation to go diving. You must not have been aware that Stockton is in the process of acquiring some property in North Sulawesi. We have been so pleased with our recent golf course acquisitions in Galloway that we are expanding into other sports. Acquiring a diving shack will enable us to build up our remarkable marine biology program along with the tourism studies aspect of hospitality and tourism management. Because the remarkable people of North Sulawesi are now considered interested parties, you should have filled out the required travel forms before you went on your so-called vacation. In fact, as a precautionary measure, due to our wide-ranging property acquisition plans, we are directing you to fill out the art form and the event form for all of your future vacations. The rundown shack in Indonesia is in a remarkable location, so we believe that it's a steal at the price of $2 million. We are budgeting renovations for a mere $5 million more. We believe that this acquisition will pay off in the long run. In fact, we are looking to acquire some other properties around the globe, and we have been offered the following in a fire sale. Due to the Greek government's need to sell assets to avoid bankruptcy, we have a chance to purchase the Parthenon for Not only will its pillars complement the graphics for our 2020 strategy map, our Hellenic Studies program will benefit as well. We think it will look great with a huge osprey decal across the In addition, we are also looking into purchasing a disused villa that belonged to someone named Berlusconi, which we think we can renovate into a global conference center on the Mediterranean. For our criminal justice program, we are investigating properties in Bogota, Colombia. There is a friendly cartel there who assures us that property values are quite reasonable and the bullet holes can be easily repaired. If we are successful, we can have a branch of Stockton CSI camp focusing on solving mock drive-by shootings and kidnappings. Finally, our new expanded art gallery facilities have been so successful that we are looking to purchase the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg. We want to rename it Stockton at the Noise Museum East. Even though some have already nicknamed it the Hermitage. Please make sure that you follow these guidelines and fill out the travel forms. Otherwise, you will be in violation of college policy. Sincerely, the Stockton administration.
By listing 3 things about you that we really do admire. First, we admire your commitment to social justice and economic justice and your dedication to fighting and negotiating on behalf of all of your colleagues. You really are making an impact in all of our lives. Second, we admire the way you live your life, that you live it as a complete and well-rounded person who balance your hard work with other things that provide meaning in your life. The diving, the clay, the things that other people have mentioned. And third,
The EPA?
Yeah, that was it. Oops.
Deb, I'm sorry to tell you, I just got a call from the Herminator. And he said that he is a bit perplexed at the use of remarkable. Next speaker up is a long time friend of Elaine, Gloria Gilman from Temple Days, yes? Hofstra, wow, that's really a long time. This is Gloria Gilman.
Well, I am from really long ago. So, and I didn't know what this was going to be like, so I really didn't prepare anything. So I just want to say... Thank you, Gloria. I just want to say 3 things as well. One is that Elaine is an incredibly clear thinker. She's very smart and says exactly on point what you need to hear. The other is that she is incredibly passionate in everything she does. And the third, they stole my joke. Okay, anyway, what I really wanted to say is that I was going to say something about all the things about Elaine that you've come up with. But what you're missing is what her real motivation is and why she does all these things. If you talk to Elaine, occasionally she'll talk about her little girlhood. Her little girlhood is still with her, and it's what really motivates her. She loves to twirl. She does the twirling, you know, with a baton thing. She likes to ice skate. She likes to watch other people ice skate and has dragged many of us to incredibly expensive trips to watch Olympic skaters. She likes to draw, and that's led to her, you know, making these little doodles and everything. She likes to put her hands in the dirt and play, which led to clay, which she has spent the last 15 years or so discovering. It goes on, but that is truly what motivates her and why she enjoys all these little things that she does. And so I appreciate the fact that she's the most incredible playmate that I have. And it sounds like she's a playmate to many of you. So thank you, Elaine.
And I don't know why, but Brian Ackerman will bring in the roundup here. Brian?
One more.
I'm sorry, I'm not Brian Ackerman. I'm Brian Ackerwoman. My name is Terry. Can you hear me? I'm the co-author of the textbook that Elaine and I have been writing for 20 years. And I am not prepared to speak, but I just can't resist jumping in at this point to introduce a little bit about Elaine that may be different for you. I work at Temple University, and I was lonely in a department which, forgive me, was all male. And there was a boss who was a very big ego, male ego. And so it was an amazing experience for me that there was a woman who seemed really interesting who wanted to work with us in our department. Actually, Elaine is the one who remembers this. I completely forgot how this happened. I interviewed Elaine for the job in our department, and we had a snack at McDonald's. And that was the occasion of me realizing, I want this woman to work with us. So she got the job. I don't remember what French fries had to do with it, but anyway, so I have been in this department with this very egotistical boss for 30 years, being very compliant and doing everything as told. Elaine lasted about a year and a half of that. She wanted a tenure track position, and she made that clear. And she probably negotiated with it with all of her heart, with all of her heart, but it didn't work out. So she made an escape, and she went to you. And I think it's actually worked out beautifully from all that I've heard over the years, the way she found her career and found her métier and found many, many wonderful friends. So I'm jealous of what happened. But I remember how the book idea came out. We were walking along the campus and we were both noticing. We were both kind of noticing that the books we had to teach business law with really sucked. There wasn't any book that we wanted to teach with. And Elaine came up with the idea that we had a lot of great material. It was radical, it was interesting, it was feminist, but no one else was using anything like this, so we should get together and put something in front of a publisher and get our book out. And I remember saying no to this about 5 times. So I wanted to just mention there's something that hasn't come up yet. I don't know if you know this, but Elaine's father is a cop. And Elaine has got a spine, like you can't believe. She just kind of said, yes, we're going to do it. And she made me feel finally optimistic enough. So we got this contract, and for 20 years we've been writing together and enjoying the process of working and finding great material to teach with. And even though she's not on my campus with me, for 20 years we not only write the book, but we teach together. So we're talking sometimes every other week about what we're about to do in 2 different states using the same material. So I just have to say it's been a wonderful, long, professional, and amiga relationship. So thank you so much, Evie.
Hey, Brian, don't do the Rick Perry joke.
I had 3 things to say. Well, I had a travelogue prepared, but it seems like it's sort of getting late. So I thought I'd just speak briefly. My name is Brian Ackerman, and we've been married 40 years, 41 years, a long time. We were indeed high school honeys, God forbid, when I tell my classes that. And I teach as well at University of Delaware. My classes, my undergraduates, they gasp, and then they boo. So Elaine was, she was my high school honey, and I am a little embarrassed about that. We went to different colleges and got married soon after college, and one of the first things I learned when we got married was that this wasn't going to be an easy road. And this is the first theme then, which is that Elaine is just a vacationer par excellence. So Joanne says she works in some sense to vacate, and that's about right. I think I'm the opposite. I vacate to work or something like that. But I grew up in an army family, so I had enough traveling by the time I got married. So that was a surprise. So probably it was the first day on our honeymoon. It wasn't a honeymoon. We just sort of took off and spent the money and $5 a day in Europe, which was sort of not such a good time. In any case, that was the first time I learned that I was not going to enjoy vacating with her, and she was going to enjoy vacating with me, or vice versa. So we started there, and then every summer thereafter, we went on these very interesting and very laborious and very wearying vacations. Our first 2 vacations, we camped across country, and that was sort of nice, I guess, because I like to camp, and I was a Boy Scout and all that kind of stuff. Our 3rd vacation, we went up to North Conway, New Hampshire to camp, and the first night I pitched the tent, she starts crying. She says, I'll never sleep on the ground again, ever. I thought, oh goodness, and this is what we could afford, so we had to go to Bar Harbor, and progressively she upped the ante. So that was the first time I learned that she had this great negotiating tactic. I mean, you talk about negotiating here, imagine what our vacations are like. We do some very fancy vacations, and I hate them, every one of them, just to let you know. At the end of the vacation, look back, and I sometimes say, oh, I probably had a good time, and I'm not quite sure. One thing, I get sick every vacation. She never does. She's got a cast iron stomach, and I apparently do not. So, but she starts negotiating on the way on the trip back. So Deb and Ellen mentioned North Sulawesi, which is this past summer. Well, that's just a 42-hour plane ride. So I have touristas about halfway through, as you can imagine, and I'm very sick and sitting in that little, that plane. And she starts to negotiate. She says, where are we going to go next year? She does this every year. She starts, on the trip back, she starts to say, where are we going to go next year? And I say, I think I'm going to Cape May this year. I'm done. I'm done. And she says, no. So she says, well, maybe we could come up with, maybe we could spend a year in a primitive little house in a war-torn country. That's her first bid. It's always the first bid. And, by the time we get done, I'm way, way, way ahead of where I want. I mean, my first bid is Cape May, and then we go from there. Lately, this is what I discovered. Lately, she's sort of turned this into, I don't know, a little bit, she's gotten very sophisticated. She has this concept of passive consent. So if I don't object, I must agree. So I'm discovering that in the middle of the night at 2 in the morning when I'm asleep, she tells me I will have agreed to go to North Sulawesi or Zimbabwe next year or so forth. And I say, oh no, I can't, but then, it just keeps on going from there down. So I bring together two themes here. One is that she's a great vacationer. I mean, you just can't imagine it. In fact, when we finished our graduate work, she, law, and me in psychology, she discovered that I supposedly have my summers off. I mean, imagine that, right? I had my summers off, and I never had a summer off. She says, well, I have to do the same thing. So she goes and gets a master's in teaching law at Temple, precisely, I think, so she could have her summers off. And of course, she hasn't had her summers off since then, but so this is a recurrent theme. So I try to think up, as Marianne was talking about, all the sort of things she's done in terms of coming up with contracts and sort of negotiating things. I was trying to think about all the vacations that I was forced to take that I didn't want to take, right? Apart from Cape May or staying home. And it's just this whole list from Zimbabwe to Botswana to I just go on down the line. So there's two things you can remember about this party for her. It's that she is the vacationer par excellence. If you ever want some advice, Nora, about vacation, she will have it for you. Send your friends to her. She'll know where to go. She's got everything mapped out. She starts high, she goes low. You'll probably end up in a good place. And the second is that this negotiation process is not just about her public life, it's also about her personal life. So thank you very much.
Right on the money. Tim, is Tim here? Yes. Tim wants to say a word or two.
There's not really much that I can add, and I'm not here to. People have done a good job already. I'm really here to express the thanks of the union. And Marianne did a good job of beginning to list the accomplishments. In negotiations, Elaine we win because Elaine is better organized and just outworks the other side. She is just an inspiration and a godsend, because I come to negotiations with 4 scraps of paper, trying to remember what happened, and Elaine has a notebook this thick that goes back 15 years, just on that one issue. I imagine someplace in her house there's this room full of binders. But you are a treasure for this union. I just can't express it. And we have a small token of appreciation, and then I think we'd like you to say a few words. So please come up.
I don't really know where to start. Marianne told me earlier this evening, I asked her for some tips, and she said, well, you wrote your responding remarks, didn't you? And I said, no. Why should I have done that? I thought I was supposed to respond to what people said. And she said, well, when I was toasted, you told me to do that. So I forgot my own preparation. And, you know, I think really the most important thing I can say is that I love you all. Hey, you're all my friends, and I really care about you, and thank you all very much. And then maybe I'll leave you with a remarkable truth. Brian thinks that I, practice negotiating for our vacations so that I can be good for the union. And the union thinks I practice negotiations. Well, no, the truth is, I practice negotiations with the union so that I can go on the vacations I want to go on. I've tried to hone these techniques so that I can use them at home, and it's obviously worked. So thank you to the union for the opportunity to travel. Because thanks to the union, I get to do that. Thank you.
This has been almost a perfect evening, but now I think we're going to spoil it a little bit. The faculty band has prepared a number of selections, and I think Michael has written a sing-along, or someone has? Yes?
One sing-along and one...
Hey, into every good experience, something has to happen.
There's handouts coming around. Handouts.
There will be a quiz.
What's that?
I have to put the rating on
No, Ann's gonna sing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go over there because my words are over there. This is too small, I can't.
Yeah. You have the other one.
All right, that is nonsense.
You have to hear me again, because none of the other band members would sing this. So I'm really sorry about this. I don't really sing very well. Okay, but I have Warren, and so that will make it all right. In my dreams, he said.
I didn't mean it that way.
Kate. I didn't mean, I know. Yeah. What key are we in? No. Yes, that's right.
With the sound you're typing, demands we have made for 1,000 years. The holes fill my heart with the sound of typing. My heart wants to write every thought that appears. My hands want to skip for the keys of the board that prints from the screen to dead trees. My hands want to drum legalese that flies from one's desk on the breeze. Language like a brook when it trips and falls over stones on its way to ride through the night, like a lark that is learning to pray. I go to the halls when my heart is lonely. I know I will write what I wrote before. My heart will be blessed with the sound of typing and writing. One more. That was as per Elaine. I want to thank Michael McGarvey for writing the song.
I'm not really scheduled here as a speaker, but I do want to say a few things before we do this next one. Three things, right? First of all, I met Elaine in the context of the union. She wasn't a leader in the union at the time. She was the faculty assembly president. So she has done a number of things, and of course, then as now, we had situations with administration and other situations that were difficult, and you know, at that time, the union was not quite what it is now. I mean, basically, you know, I inherited from Ralph sort of a one-person shop, and I found in Elaine somebody who I was able to be counseled by, and as well as obviously the senior members of the union. But Elaine was sort of more of a peer, and I just am so thankful for her wisdom and her friendship and her hard work. And of course, then when she came to the union, as everyone has described, her hard work, and it really is quite amazing what she's able to do with her typing. And the bag, I didn't know about the vacation thing. The bag was just, okay. right, so we have another one then. Anyways, I want to thank you for all of your work. And I know that's true for everyone here. Smart teacher, young and young, she's Elaine Ingulli. She outsmarts them so badly, stands up to the academy. Inside her, there's language for stopping unity. At the table, so persuasive, Elaine wins victory. She stands for SFT. She stands for you and me. Our members are so anxious, you know how bad we get. Sometimes it's not so easy to be the union rep. Negotiations, frustrations, so bad it makes us cry. In her office, she's typing the words we hope to fly. She stands for SFT. She stands for you and me. Loose talking, not always. Our members try and try. Strong words at the table, the accusations fly. No use now, she nails them. They start to shake and cough. Resolution, she's so close now. They're trapped and can't back off. She stands for SFT. She stands for you and me. Elaine, our Elaine Ingulli. Elaine, our Elaine Ingulli. Elaine, our Elaine Ingulli. Elaine, our Elaine Ingulli.
Left, right, left, right. There it is. Christy, you're a boy, make a big fuss. That's an education, gonna be a big fuss. Okay, you got mud on your face, you big disgrace. We're gonna put you back in your place with me.